Okay, Bleach fans just caught another major win after the latest episode of the Thousand Year Blood War, episode 29, or episode 3 of Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Core 3, because oh my goodness, Studio Pierrot has just been pulling out all the stops and Tite Kubo's original additions to the Bleach anime that were not seen in the manga, have really just showcased this anime ain't no joke. This anime is not playing games, and it honestly showcases that yes, while waiting a bajillion years, okay, it was a decade, but still it felt like a bajillion years, and a decade is a long time, for the Bleach anime to return with the Thousand Year Blood War, it was for the betterment, because I don't know if we get the same level of quality, the same level of dedication, the same level of original material had the Bleach anime never took that break way back in 2012. It just seems like the Bleach anime with this adaptation of the Thousand Year Blood War has just skyrocketed in terms of what is possible and capable of the big three anime. Because this episode in particular, even before it aired, was basically promoted as and delivered essentially original material that was not seen in the manga, but essentially the original creator Tite Kubo wanted to have included. Therefore, they allowed him, and he put his best foot forward into putting it into the anime, which I'm a little bit divided on these aspects, only because considering the limited amount of episodes that we have to adapt this entire war, with it being what, roughly 50 episodes for basically all 4 cores, I was kind of worried on whether or not they would be able to execute not only adapting the material faithfully and not rushing through things, but also adding in the additions that Kubo wanted that he never got the chance to put in his original manga. I was worried if they would be able to handle all of that, because that's a lot and that's a tall order. But it seems as though, even though yes, the Thousand Year Blood War has been at a breakneck fast pace, ultimately they're still allowing to deliver stuff that felt very much so well paced, balanced, and in general something for Bleach fans to be proud of and say, yo, our anime is winning and doing stuff that it deserves, straight up taking the W. Because this episode in particular can be broken down into 2, maybe 3 parts, but definitely more so leaning on 2 parts, because one part of the episode was basically emphasizing and pushing in the backstory of Ukitake, Jushiro, and his past and what led him to this, because it kind of was also a nice tying and a ribbon on top for this character that we've seen throughout all of Bleach. If there's anything you would know about this character, maybe you don't remember much of Bleach, but you always remember, oh, that was the dude that was always sick, that's the dude that was always spitting up blood, and there was always a health issue with him. So to kind of see it all come full circle and get his true backstory, thanks to Tite Kubo and Studio Pierrot collaborating to bring that forward, and beautiful, pristine quality art and animation, how can you not praise this adaptation? Because essentially we get Jushiro's backstory, how he met Ukitake, stuff with his parents, how he was ill as a child, and everything that transpired leading him to this very moment. Essentially, as a child, he was always extremely sick, and it seemed as though, you know, his lifespan would be short. However, his parents kept on praying to this deity, essentially what seemingly was the hand of the Soul King, Mimihagi. And while it definitely felt a little bit eerie, because they were chanting like, yo, we give all our sons organs, just heal him, I was like, what? Ultimately, that seems to be the case, that his parents and him as a child had offered up his organs, his innards, in order to essentially be able to live on and not die thanks to an ailment that he had as a child. And the scene where his parents are basically tearing up and he wipes a tear off their eye, which leads into him having the interaction with Mimihagi, because Mimihagi also had the tear on their eye. Nicely done, nicely choreographed, nice transitions, all around just nice. No, seriously, they really just did a phenomenal job in emphasizing that whole scene of it was essentially an offering that allowed Ukitake to continue living, but he was still very much so dealing with ailments, just it would allow him to live on with the ailments. And it's kind of crazy that it was essentially the hand of God, when you think about it, that allowed for Ukitake to make it this far. However, obviously due to the state of things and what just transpired in last week's episode of Bleach, where basically the Soul King has been annihilated, because how Ichigo was essentially manipulated into cutting down the Soul King King. Now the balance of all worlds, Hueco Mundo, Soul Society, and the human living world are in absolute chaos, and they needed something to, at the very least for now, basically create a remedy that would hold everything together. Think like a stick of gum to kind of keep it glued. And Ukitake utilizes this, and essentially he sacrificed himself and everything that he was to basically summon Mimihagi, basically become the Soul King's hand that can hold together all of the realities. However, because Ukitake is still technically, you know, a Soul Reaper, he's still somewhat of a being. I almost said a human being, but you get what I'm saying. And his lifespan doesn't have a long lasting length. Ultimately, this is a temporary solution for an ongoing problem, that there is no Soul King to hold the fabrics of reality together. But nevertheless, it showed Ukitake's selflessness and just what he was willing to do for the people and how much of a good person he was, because all of the anime original stuff really helped to build up and solidify the moment where he actually makes the sacrifice, because we get all the scenes from the past with him and Kyoraku, how he met him, how they were truly friends. Like throughout the Bleach anime, you've seen time and time again of them together and him being sick and Kyoraku being there for him. You see truly that they had a camaraderie and a real friendship. It was genuine. So you add all of that together and it honestly intensifies it and makes it emotional, even if you don't remember everything from Bleach, even if you're kind of a little bit hazy on some of the moments of them that they shared. You get to see again that they were friends all along. And shout outs massively, and this is why again I gotta stress that Bleach fans, the Bleach anime, and all parties involved take a massive W for this episode, because the anime original content really amounted to something great, something precious, something beautiful, and it intensified the moment. I don't know if everyone feels as strongly about Ukitake's sacrifice if we don't have those anime original moments to remind us about his character and kind of bridge the gap of who he was and what he's been through, and also just show his strong connection with another character that is going through something incredibly difficult as well, Kyoraku. Because as I started this review saying, there was a couple of different parts to this episode, and the other half of this episode, while essentially Ukitake is making this sacrifice to summon Mimihagi to hold the fabrics of reality, then you have Kyoraku basically trying to speak with the man, the myth, the legend, the god, Kami-sama, Sosuke Aizen. As Aizen is trapped in the chair, we see that Kyoraku came down there with every intention of, yo dog, we kind of need your help, because he had this giant box of keys, because remember, Aizen is no joke at all, so they had to make sure they strapped him down with all sorts of different locks, to the point where I don't even know how many keys there were in that box, but there was a catch. And I ain't gonna lie, Central 46 sometimes be on some next level stuff. Like, I get it that there is a crazy threat out there right now. Your watch, your bak, Yuhabaha, whatever you want to call him, is ridiculously destroying the Serate. But at a time like this, to make it even more complicated, complex, and put more on Shunsui's plate than he really needs right now, to basically say, yo dog, we know that Aizen is on some boo, you know what I'm saying? We can't really trust him, we can't play around here, so we're gonna let you go down there. We're gonna let you only open 3 locks from him. You just get to open 3, and the thing about it is that the main key, we want you to dig it into your heart, so that way if Aizen tries to pull a fast one and obliterate you, he will be stuck and sealed away for all eternity. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a smart idea, because at the end of the day, you don't want to make the mistake of freeing Aizen and he ends up helping to beat your watch, only to essentially give birth to an even grander threat than we have right now with your watch and all of the Stern Ritter. But I'm just saying, it reminds me of Naruto when the elders get involved and stuff like that. They always be on some next level, like, bro, do we really gotta put Kyoraku's freaking whole existence on the line for this? But I guess things are dire. I don't know. What do you think about Central 46's bull? Either way, as Kyoraku unlocks the lock to essentially Aizen's mouth for him to talk, and it's kind of crazy because he's been for years not even being able to move his mouth, so the average person that was sealed in there wouldn't even be able to open their mouth, wouldn't be able to talk, because bro, your mouth has been closed for 2 years. But it's Aizen, and with releasing just one of the ties, one of the seals, he's able to talk, and just showcases that this ain't no joke. This is a very dangerous situation, and maybe I might have to cut a little slack to Central 46, because at the end of the day, what we see him doing right there with Kyoraku and some of the Soul Reapers that he brought with him, scary, because Kyoraku only released 3 of the seals that were holding Aizen, and he was able to obliterate one of the Soul Reapers that was trying to run at him like nothing. He didn't even have to make a move. Even the blood splatter from dude that Aizen slashed up and destroyed there wasn't able to touch Aizen because he has a barrier around him. Like, don't think just because Aizen has been locked away for all these years in that chair that he's gotten soft or weak, or that he's not capable of being the god that he was. Let's not forget that prior to his defeat at the hands of Ichigo and Urahara, this man had swallowed up the Hogyoku. Like, this dude had the powers of God within him. I mean, his whole point and his whole plan was essentially that he wanted to do kind of what Bach is doing right now. Maybe it was for different motives and different purposes, but he wanted to get rid of the Soul King as well. And he looked at them as, how can you follow that thing that's in there? But you got to imagine, if Aizen is capable of doing all of this and he still has like 20 locks, 20 different seals holding him back, what is this dude going to be capable of if you release all the seals in general? Like, Central 46 try to have that little plan that, yeah, we're going to put it in his heart, but it's Aizen. He'll rip that key right out of Kyoraku and bust up out of there. And honestly, that whole entire scene was magnificent. There was one portion, there was a couple times where I was like, Aizen's facial structure just looks slightly off character model in some of the close-up scenes. In particular, like the nose area was a little bit different, but for the most part, the whole entire scene was epic, straight coming from the manga. I loved it in the manga. The anime took it to a new level, like the 1,000-Year Blood War been doing. Big 1,000-Year Blood War energy. And in general, it's just showcasing the return of the GOAT. He's been locked away for quite some time. I mean, technically, the anime version of Aizen has been locked for like 12 years now, but it seems to be the case that, yeah, things are dire and we're going to need Aizen one way or another. I love how Kyoraku's words really meant nothing to Aizen, where he's like, yo, don't you want to breathe some of the air of the Soul Society? And Aizen is such a crafty, godlike being that he's like, oh, breathe the air of the Serite that is being annihilated by Bach as we speak. Yeah, that air, I gotcha. Like, dude is aware of everything that's been going on the surface this entire time, and he's sealed away. So when Aizen gets free and when he goes to fight against Bach, it's going to be one heck of a slobber knocker, folks. Shout out to Jim Ross. And then, as I said in the beginning, there could be, technically, you could slice this into a third, although it was a lot smaller than the other previous two parts, because essentially there's a scene where Ichigo and crew yet again are trying to basically catch the W, so to speak, and at the same time restore the Soul King. And I love Bach's just whole reaction to this situation, because he's like smiling like, oh, you think you're gonna do something? As Orihime essentially tries to utilize her powers to restore the Soul King, and it doesn't work. Her powers basically shatter right in front of her, and Bach is like, you thought a human is about to revive the Soul King? Are you nuts? It's bad out here, fam. Although I love, again, some of these anime only moments. I don't think that Chad really had any big moments in the manga, and we got to see, even if it was him throwing a punch, getting to see Ganju throwing sand, getting to see once again Yoruichi throwing down, and she looked beautiful. The art and animation, again, just wins after wins. Incredible scene, even if they weren't successful at restoring the Soul King. And then one other piece, as Bach is there fighting against them, Mimi Hagi shows up in the sky, and he is puzzled because his eyes, despite the fact that he could see every possible reality, couldn't foresee this. And I only got to imagine the fact that he's not able to see this is because that this is the hand of the Soul King. He probably cannot foresee future movements if the Soul King is involved. So essentially, if you think about it, Mimi Hagi or anything revolving around the Soul King has the power to change the future that Bach sees before his eyes. So if we had some way of utilizing that Mimi Hagi power or the Soul King's power in general and morphing it or fusing it into somebody, they probably could take down Bach, because he wouldn't be able to foresee their strategies or how they're going to come at him or their future in general. And with all that being said, fantastic episode. Like I said, Bleach once again outdoes the manga and the fandom is on fire. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. What did you think about all the anime original scenes? How did you feel about Aizen yet again looking like a beast? Your thoughts on the whole situation with Ukitake and the anime original stuff with him, and eventually his leading into sacrificing himself to utilize the powers of Mimi Hagi to hold the fabric of reality together. That's all I have for this one, though. I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Subscribe and hit that bell to get more. Thank you so much. Got so many questions, wish I had the answers. If only God could hear me, then here's what I would ask him.